Joining. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Hi, Annika.
Hi,
I'm
Yuri.
super excited to begin our series of podcasts, our series of discussions and different talks that we usually have with each other. And we decided to be a little bit more generous so we can share that knowledge and the wisdom with our friends, with people that we meet regularly during our professional events, our students. And today we are about to talk about something that is very important to understand for all of us. It's energy, how we as humans experience energy, and specifically energy manners. I find this topic to be extremely fascinating. So we are about to bring Annika's perspective and my perspective on this fascinating topic.
Wow. Well, good evening and good morning. I know that we're on different time zones, Yuri, and welcome everyone. We definitely are feeling a part of a community right now with all of you that we've met over the summer and all of our friends and colleagues that may be joining today. So please, if you have questions, just go ahead and put them in the chat or on your social media platform. And Yuri, it's so awesome to see you. You're such a lovely person, really, you are. You're like a bright star. And
same goes to you. Although here in Europe right now, it's a nighttime, but thank you for that. That's all the electrical lighting.
It's all the electrical lighting. So one of the things that we can just start with as an exercise to begin the topic of energy manners, which has been, I learned that term from Linda Cicera, a teacher of mine who teaches what are called energy classes based upon Barbara Brennan's Hands of Light book, with a fascinating book and really going into personality traits. But the phrase or the concept of energy manners is about how we conduct ourselves as electrical beings. Mm-hmm. Right? Our body is electric. So how we use our electricity to ground, to stay in our own lane, to pause, to reflect, to stay out of other people's space, to protect our own space. And so one thing we can do right away together is we can just draw your attention to the back of your body, your spinal column, mm-hmm. and take nice deep inhales through the nose, nice deep exhales through the mouth. And that attention to the back of your body, to your spinal column, is the first step in cultivating energy manners, because it draws our attention into our being and it allows for any adjustments that we may need to take in interacting with other people, places, and things. So the first step is just resting in the back of our body. 80% of our attention is on our spinal column. And then the second step to cultivating energy manners is to be aware of your internal stressors. So where are you at today? Everyone can just take a moment, wherever you are in the world, wherever you are on the planet. What type of internal stressors might you be experiencing today? Maybe you haven't eaten yet. Maybe you just got a bunch of stressful texts, or maybe you have a big project planned, or who knows what. So paying attention to that. And then once you've added those two layers in, then being aware of your physical surroundings. What's in your space? Who's in your space? If we're on a computer, it's two-dimensional. That in itself is already taxing to our three-dimensional beings. Mm-hmm. So I find for myself that I'm grounding into what I call energy manners. And I do those basics probably 100 times a day. And those basics are drawing your attention to the back of your body, feeling your feet on the ground, knowing what is yours and what's not yours, which is called me, not me.
Mhm.
And then choosing how you're going to interact with other people, places, and things that come into your space.
Mhm. 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 That's very powerful exercise. Just in a, even before you started to cue close your eyes, the first thing that I did closing my eyes to, and it really literally my posture, I noticed like physiologically, my posture lengthened. Suddenly there's a greater ease because I'm not so much forward directed. I'm more relaxed and upright, and just everything kind of effortless aligns in your body. I love that understanding. And also I love that you said, that we as energetic, electromagnetic beings, we constantly throw in off that harmonic balance, right? It's like we need to learn how to constantly refocus, redirect our energy, because we don't have the perfect condition to live in the forest or in a monastery where it's all set and it's all peaceful and there is no external stressors, right, that come into our space. So when talking about so there's a question there in terms of what do we do in order to practice that grounding or rebalancing. That would be for the first question. And then the second question there is also, you mentioned just a laptop or electricity of devices kind of throws our energy slightly out. Would you say that other humans or also have different energy types in some way that kind of can either align with us or maybe not so much align with us? Whatever question.
Well, those are big, big questions. So, I mean, and I know a lot of people that may be joining us, have a lot of experience in their own practices of meditation, of fitness, but and so we're just, we're just sharing what little knowledge we know and have experienced. But I do think it's profound, because I think that, like, for example, if we look at like the great martial artists, or we look at the great athletes, the US Open was just on, you watch these human bodies that are in their peak performance. And what does that mean to be in your peak performance as a physical being? That means that you have grounded into your relationship with gravity. You have cultivated your energy manners so that you can have that acute sense of the next right action. So when I'm looking at bodies, physical bodies that exhibit energy manners, there is a calmness, like the Buddha, for sure, or like you. But there is also the tendency or the potential, which you can see, for explosive power. Yeah. So, like in Bruce Lee, where before Bruce Lee would engage in any sort of combat, you could see his entire fascial network, his entire muscular system, his entire nervous system ground into the back of his body. And then you could see sort of the expansiveness of his awareness to not just peripheral vision, but above and below. So that awareness keeps us in our own lane. And when I refer to like computers, I mean, yeah, computers are, all of that stuff's going to mess us up for sure. But there's good news to that too. And that is that it's just part of evolution, right? So one of my teachers, Dr. Brian Swim, who wrote Canticles to the Cosmos, such an amazing perspective on the evolution of the human being, right? So we were in the hunter and gatherers, and then the age of the Industrial Revolution, and now supposedly we're in the age of wisdom. It may not feel like we're in the age of wisdom, but that is, I know. And here's why we're in the age of wisdom. It's because we are the most curious and the most self-reflective as an animal that we've ever been. I mean, we've always been curious, but now we have this hyper awareness from meditation, from the fact that doctors recommend meditation, that everywhere we go, we're told meditate. Are you meditating? And what, the reason for that is to be able to observe the physical body in relationship to mind, So when I talk about computers, one of the concepts that Dr. Brian Swimme has presented is that we are becoming computers, that we are evolving into this computer type being. But when I refer to it, Yuri, I'm just talking about a two-dimensional plane. That's all. So and you know, during COVID and post-COVID now, many of us are working online. And so what does that mean? That stress in itself, just mathematically, we're going from 3 dimensions to 2 dimensions. That is a huge leap in the opposite direction.
The opposite direction, yeah.
Right? Which causes us to even now, like, you know, the moment I lose that 80% of my attention to the back of the body, I'm now in, you know, your space, I'm in everybody else's space. I forget maybe what I'm doing. What am I doing? So
no, and I think that we are becoming more and more aware of the you know, effects of what has happened within this 2 past years. You're right, because there were some people that took time to actually to understand what it means to be less engaged with the external environment and to kind of harness this time of aloneness and what that means to be alone by yourself. And then some of us actually took time to explore the digital world, you know, where like you said, you know, there are some great benefits because, and I do think that we are in the age of wisdom, because literally any knowledge that I want to have right now is at my fingertips. You know, it's interesting when we talk about the energy, a lot of people reach out to me and be like saying, oh, you're all into that occult energy stuff. And I'm like, it's not a cult. A cult means forbidden and hidden. Nothing is hidden anymore. You can access any knowledge you want to access. And I even think, you know, let's say 20 years, you know, when I just was a kid or a teenager learning a foreign language, how hard it was to just like get a book in English in order to study English. Now you don't even need a book. You can just download a bunch of things all over the internet, watch the videos, study this way, study this way. You don't even need a teacher these days, you know? So the progression goes really fast, but I think exactly what you're saying, we're losing the perspective that we are living in the time of wisdom. And it doesn't look like this because we literally take it for granted, just like our energy, right? We take that for granted as well.
Yeah, and I think just, you know, I mean, I'm curious what other people are experiencing if folks are joining us, but one of the things that I like to remind people, because it can sound very new agey or esoteric, that energy is the amount of electricity passing through a certain body. So it's grounded in physics, and my background is in math, and I used to really work with kind of the mathematical models when I was practicing martial arts at a very high level. And that is because understanding the physics of movement, which, you know, we can do as non-professional athletes, we can understand the physics of movement. So anything that you're doing now in your life, whether it's dance or swimming or yoga or whatever your practice is, there is a physics to that movement. And if we can understand where is the maximum amount of charge that's needed to complete that, like walking is aerobic for the most part, steady state inhale, steady state exhale. So knowing when do you have to use explosive power, what exercise do you have to ground first and then go into that movement. The same could be with interacting with your family, you know that you're going to have a difficult conversation. Where is your attention before you have that conversation, or in your business? So just having that basic, it's called basics. And it's before anything, and 100 times a day, drawing your attention to the back of your body, which is what we do in Junction automatically. Finding your relationship to gravity, which just means being aware of where your physical body is in relationship to the ground. And then understanding your surroundings. And that can take a split second. And when I think of like the age of wisdom, I'm not thinking like, okay, we're just becoming smarter. We're not. What it means, what it means is that we've gone from using our bodies over hundreds and thousands of years for work to using our bodies less and less and less, where exercise becomes this privilege, really, and using our minds more and more and more. So that's the trend into the age of wisdom, as far as I understand it.
Yeah. And also, as you mentioned, you know, we do have so much that is available for us in like technologically that we have used in the opposite way. We use it in a way to not just enhance our health and our livelihood. We use it in a way to like destroy and destruct, you know, other beings. So that's where the sad part is, that, you know, we have this capacity to just literally live on the most abundant planet with this beauty. And what we do instead, we kind of channel it in a different way and have this planet that is, you know, screaming for help. And I think that's where, you know, your and my inspiration is to call the series as Earth Warrior, is the person that actually, through the awareness of his or her own body, then starts to care a little bit more about surrounding, just like you said, you know, caring a little bit more or understanding a little bit more the energy dynamics in your family. And then that expands to your community. And then that expands to the, you know, global way of relating to the energy. And I love what you said about, you know, all of this information literally being grounded in science and physics, right? Because if we were not electromagnetic beings, like all the devices that we use for our health wouldn't work on us, right? Like if no EEGs would scan our heart, because if there was no electricity in our body, that wouldn't work on us, right? But for some reason, when we tell people that there is energy within a human body, people are like, oh, energy, what that means? It literally means just the same, almost the same energy that you would find in an electrical outlet. You know, don't do that. Don't go looking for it, because you'll find it there and it will be very strong. It will be very, very intense electric shock, right? And if you survive it, that's great. But we all emit the same amount of bioelectric magnetic energy field on a daily basis, right? We are exposed to it, we emit it, and like you said, it's very important to be aware of it.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, and I think that's you know, like what you said, Yuri, to bring the concept and the theme back to like Earth Warriors, you know. So, and that's another part of being in the age of wisdom, where 75,000 years ago, our hominid ancestors, they were the first ancestral animals that were aware of death, and there was a celebration of death. And now, you know, being human in the 21st century, we're not just aware of our impermanence, we're hyper aware of our impermanence. And we are also hyper aware of the impermanence of our planet. And so that awareness is both a beautiful gift and it's also a curse. It can cause huge fear spikes, right? And so those fear spikes affect the physiology of the body. And the antidote to having a fear spike, and I don't know about you, but I have, you know, turn on the news and you get a fear spike, or as Byron Katie said.
Absolutely. Regardless your mindset, the moment you hear that, you're like, okay, where was I with my energy?
Or as Byron Katie says, you know, if you want to create fear on purpose, get a future, right? So thinking about the future creates fear spikes. Lamenting on the past creates grief spikes. And so the antidote to that is having energy manners. The antidote is to do your basics every day. So we build up this reservoir. And I mean, and the greats do this. You know, the great athletes, the great leaders, Desmond Tutu, and you know, the whole movement of of joy. And I mean, there's just experts all over the place. But what we want to do is say, let's create this understanding of the next stage in evolution, which is to become an earth warrior. And what does that mean?
Exactly, what does that mean? And I want to make a shout out to Shelly, who posted this wonderful thing on Facebook, which makes me a little bit more aware, and I guess invite everyone, regardless of their expertise level on any of what we're talking about, to start doing those little steps right now, like you mentioned. And Shelly just mentioned that she became more aware of her energy in the past few years, which just kind of tells us that even though we are living through the times of incredible crisis, they just, I mean, crisis on whatever level you want to mention it, we're just going through it right now. And I personally don't think it's going to get easier in the future, in the soonest future, like what you said about the fear, if you want to have fear, acquire future. So how can we get grounded right now? How can we get more understanding of our energy right now at this moment, and literally every day, waking up to a practice that grounds you? Because exactly what you said, it's doing those steps constantly. It's not just like you did one meditation and the day is on, no, it's like stepping back every moment, get back to the awareness of your spine. Where am I? And constantly having those energetic checks. That is so absolutely true and beautiful. So taking this time of crisis as the time of a great opportunity to explore yourself, to learn all the techniques, to pick up some techniques, right? In some way.
Yeah. I was just thinking about, like, if you're not in the forest and a tree falls, do you hear it? I mean, it doesn't make a sound, and it's like we are, as a species, more hyper aware than we have ever been, because we have had technology to help us so much. And so, I mean, there were crises and lots of things happening when we were hunter and gatherers. I mean, there's always been some sort of planetary thing that's been happening, but we are very, very aware of it now in terms of our home. And that awareness, again, with that awareness, I mean, some people call it awareness hell, right? You're so aware, but you don't know what to do. So now we have to be really aware, but have the skill set to the more that we shift energetically, the more that our external world will also shift, has been my experience.
Yeah. Anika, thank you so much for sharing this part, because I feel like we can talk about this so much more. But let's give opportunity to everybody who's listening to this to digest this little piece. Yeah. And then we'll definitely, because I think you mentioned this great part, that this is the basics, right? Yeah. And start with your basics right now. And the basics are just as simple as doing exactly what you mentioned, bringing your attention to the back of your body and seeing what's happening. If you can do this for 1 minute every day, that's a huge achievement. So start there. And Anika, do you have any other things that you would like to recommend to people, where people can get in touch maybe with you for?
Well, we're doing this awesome retreat that is very exciting. Yuri and I are presenting a mind-body retreat, which is kind of like a vacation with swords and with energy manners, in Cabo next April. So we'd love to have you there. And also every Sunday, I teach Junction online, which is a sword fitness class, if you're not aware of that, and it's free. So you can just go to the Junction Fitness website page and find the Zoom link and just join. It helps if you have a sword, but if you don't, I show you empty hand forms.
Which is amazing, which is just period amazing. I think I have 4 swords in my possession personally, and I think that's just really incredible multi-directional movement, regardless of your experience with martial arts. The moment you pick up the sword, you definitely feel like an earth warrior. It gives you all the courage.
Yeah. And we hope that you guys will join us in Cabo in April. And
And we're going to do definitely. We're going to explore energy matters in a practical way. I will be talking on meditation and very specific practical things, how to start meditation practice, how to get more regular with your meditation practice, and how that practice could look like. Because there are so many different ways to practice meditation, and meditation literally will stick to you if you choose a right way for it.
Yes, like I will be meditating with a margarita in the water while Yuri is teaching you meditation.
or apart from alcohol, one could be meditating laying down, like we do a lot during conventions, and then another one can be meditating sitting up. And there are huge differences between those styles. And for some people, it would be absolutely crucial to try to meditate laying down, because they have so much going on in the energy of their head that they need to kind of put their body in a complete resting position to allow that sense of no mind for a moment. Again, it's not possible to have no mind, but there are energy manners, or there are energy differences even in the ways of meditation. So we're definitely going to talk about this, and we will probably talk about this sometime later during our next podcast. We are planning on coming out every month with a little release that will be talking about specific interesting topics, and definitely your feedback is highly, highly appreciated, and your questions are highly appreciated, because then it helps us to reflect on that together, and also form a little community online that talks about matters that matter.
I love that. Matters that matter.
Matters that matter. That's it.
Ashes to ashes, dust to dust.
Well, until the next time then. Annika, thanks so much for connecting with me today. And I look forward to speaking to you in next month on topic. I think we're going to talk about evolution of movement specifically there.
Yeah, the evolution of movement.
Energy. So stay tuned.
Yeah, thanks, Yuri. I'll see you guys soon, and I will look forward to your questions on our posts.
Bye. Thank you so much for being here.